I want to welcome you to Season 4 of Concentric Educational Solutions Podcast, One Door at a Time. This is the business season. This is where we're going to dig deep into the businesses, the people who have created the businesses, the entrepreneurs, those who push the envelope, those who seek to disrupt the status quo and to try to get the results for the communities that they serve. It's been an unbelievable journey. I've been waiting really the whole summer to really think about the first guest on this Season 4 and how to open it up. I had this unique pleasure a couple months ago to really, one, introduce and get to know you, but then also to partner. I'm very competitive, but I would say that for a short minute, we held the record for the largest Series A investment for a Black-owned company, and then you like doubled us out the door. You bodied us up on some Kendrick Lamar types thing. But if we're going to be surpassed, it's being surpassed by someone who's committed to the work, someone who's really committed to giving back to the community, and most importantly, who's just very authentic. So I want to welcome everybody. As usual, we are supported and sponsored by Atlas Restaurant Group, and now we have a new one, Mercedes-Benz of Catonsville. No, I'm not bougie, but they do have excellent cars and great deals, so go down and see Sam. He is the general manager there. I want to welcome, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome HAFEEZAH Muhammad from Backpack, CEO, founder. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't believe it's been 2 months. It feels like it's been so much longer.
Facts. So let's jump right into it. They're going to hear your accent. Where are you from?
I'm from St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, born and raised. So anyone out there from the Virgin Islands, VI massive.
Oh, wow. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
VI massive.
So talk about your early journey. Like, how does growing up in the Virgin Islands shape who you are?
Yeah, so growing up in the Virgin Islands, I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I have an older brother, but for my mom, I'm her first child. And we had a family business, and we sold T-shirts to tourists.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was like, you have to hustle. So when I was 9 years old, him and my mom would leave me out there.
Oh, wow.
Selling T-shirts to the tourists, collecting money. And what I learned early on is that how important it is to work hard, the importance of communication, the importance of how do you engage and smile and be happy so that you can, make some money. And I remember when I was 11, my dad said, hey, this deposit that you're gonna make this deposit at the bank. I was like, Daddy, someone is gonna steal the money. It was thousands of dollars. And he's like, you think they're gonna think an 11-year-old has money? So I was like growing up in the Virgin Islands as early as I did and having that early connection to entrepreneurship was really incredible. But also there was a double-edged sword. I was like, I don't ever want to start a business. I don't want to do anything with business because I felt that at the time it took away a lot from my childhood, not knowing it was the foundation of, what led me to be where I'm at today.
So you grew up in the Virgin Islands. How did you come over to America? What was that journey?
Yeah, so coming over to America, I stepped back. So I was bored in school. My dad said at 14 that he's going to enroll me in the University of the Virgin Islands. So I was like, let's take some summer classes. And I was like, it's kind of boring, but I eventually ended up in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, wow.
I know,
wow.
It's a journey because my uncle was there. He was there for a few decades. And my parents wanted me to be around someone that had been a first child that's leaving the island, somewhere I had some support, and led me to Salt Lake City, Utah, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and now here in Maryland.
So what was the cultural difference or shock? Was there one that when you came over?
Oh, absolutely. So seeing snow for the first time was a culture shock. Like, as a kid growing up, you're like dreaming about seeing snow. So it was all exciting, but I didn't have a car, so I had to walk in it.
Oh, wow.
So I remember like the culture shock of just people driving in their car, I'm walking in the snow, just getting all that water splashed on me. And I think what was different was that growing up in the Virgin Islands in a culture where it's, all your senators, your teachers, your leadership is all Black and people of color, was very different to go to an environment where I was a true minority, where no one else looked like me. And, we're very direct and honest in the way that we communicate.
Very.
And I did get a couple of, slaps on the wrist for being too direct. So I had to really change on how do I communicate with different cultures and different environments to be able to adapt to certain circumstances. So that was a culture shock for me.
Was there any particular story during that time, the transition, that stands out to you?
Oh, wow. So I'm going to be real. Because
keep it real.
Kind of like a one. So I remember working at this hotel and I told the young lady, I was like, oh my goodness, you're gaining weight. So gaining weight was seen as like something positive. So everyone at the desk was like, you were so mean. How dare you tell someone you're gaining weight? And she was sad. So I learned that, every culture is different. And, that was one story that stuck out to me.
Because in a lot of countries, Afro-Cuban or Afro-Caribbean country, it's seen as a sign of opulence, of making it.
Exactly my point.
Absolutely. So how did you end up in Maryland? So
I started off early career at Verizon. And so like most people don't know, 2004. Okay. So give you a step back, like started Verizon before text messaging was launched.
Wow.
Part of like the customer service team that was like helping people set up text messaging. Agent 2T9, the youngins don't know what that is, but like the old school texting. And, moving up the ladder, transferred to Albuquerque, New Mexico, back to Utah. And then there was a role here in Hanover, Maryland that I came for. And I spent some years there and I just loved everything about it.
So what, in the corporate world, what are some things that you learned that as you go forward that you learned that help you out?
So one thing I learned was really inspiring, because starting a company in 2004 and then leaving in 2018, you see how an organization grows over time.
You were there for 14 years?
14 years, like in and out, but like from starting and I left in 2004 and I left in 2018.
Okay.
But one thing I learned was that the digital transformation is so critical, because the amount of employees we started on in 2004 is significantly less than how much we ended, like about close to 200,000 less employees.
Really?
But you almost quadrupled the revenue, quadruple the amount of customers. So how do you use digital transformation to ensure you're able to grow an organization and scale it efficiently?
I'm starting to see the connection.
Now you're starting to see the connection now, right? You're going to see the connection. And so that led me early retirement 2018, and I felt like I wanted to do something different. I took a year off.
You were able to get early retirement?
Yeah, so there was like this package, like a severance package, and I said, okay, I'm young. I felt like if I'm going to keep trying to move up the ladder, I want to do something that's meaningful. Like, how do I make a difference? How do I make impact? And then I took a year off, and then I became a vice president of sales and customer support for one of the largest mental health companies, reporting to the CEO.
How did that happen? From Verizon to thinking about mental health?
So I would say that the journey is like wanted to do something by doing good. So I started a nonprofit called STEM Love in between that about how do I like help get kids more involved in STEM, because I love technology. Okay. But what I noticed is that doing the nonprofit world is that you have to be, searching for funding. But I'm the type of person that I get excited when I see revenue and growth. Like that gets me excited. But I wanted to do something good.
Okay.
And that's what led me to finding something in healthcare about how do I help drive revenue, grow an organization, but that the work that I'm doing, that there's good that's going to come from it. People are going to get better. Lives are going to be saved. And that's what I was looking for, something more mission oriented. Okay.
So you get into now the mental health field.
Yeah.
Right. What mental health, 2019? Am I doing the math
2020. Right? So like I had
right before COVID?
Right before COVID. 2021, like during right after COVID. No, in 2020. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Wow.
2020.
So what was that like transitioning to mental health just as we're going into a global pandemic?
So at the time, what was interesting enough is that the company was a growth stage company. So they're in multiple states, significant amounts of revenue. But the infrastructure around scaling, about how do we potentially get like people work from home, none of that was implemented. So I actually went into overdrive and excitement about like, oh, wow, this is easy for me because I've done this. I know how to work under this type of pressure. But it was very challenging to transform a in-person operations or in-person sales was support into a work from home. But the benefit from that allowed us to be able to find candidates from anywhere else in the country instead of just focusing in, at the time we were headquartered in Virginia.
And was that, so going at the beginning and then into COVID, it was really on the ground?
On the ground, yeah.
And then you really had to usher in the technology piece of it or the remote piece of it?
Yeah, the remote piece. How do you set up a remote workforce?
Okay. How much of a challenge was it as far as setting up that remote workforce? Because a lot of people now are switching back to non-remote, that they have to be in the office.
It was a challenge because you're changing behaviors, right? About there are some people that thrive in person, like you go to the water cooler, you talk to people, you engage. And then you have some people who are like, oh, wow, I don't have to worry or interact with anyone. Right now, I do see a lot of companies are trying to have individuals go back into the office. I don't agree with that because I feel that we need to be able to evolve as a business, as a country and an organization. And if people are not engaged working from home, like how do we help them do better? Because if you look at corporate revenue and company revenue, a lot of companies and major organizations had the best financial growth when people were working from home. So why are now we are impacting the employee experience by requiring them to come in person, demanding them? Like that's something I don't agree with because it has to be a balance. Like how do we keep that evolution and become better in this new environment?
Start talking about backpack. Like what was the evolution or the thinking behind that to actually bring that to fruition?
Yeah, so a very personal place. In October of 2020, my son who was 6 came to me and said, Mommy, I feel like I want to kill myself.
Wow.
My heart broke. I didn't see it coming.
At 6 years old?
6 years old. Because of his disability, he was on Medicaid.
Okay.
And I could not find care for him. And as I started peeling back the data where I, had access to data, I saw there were thousands of families on Medicaid that was looking for care. And I said, if I have access and resources and it's taken me so long to find care, what about the individuals like my son who look like me, who look like him? And thinking and doing some more research and seeing that there's such a major impact for mental health for, Black and brown kids. And I said, I want to do something different. And then I told you earlier on that I didn't want anything to do with being a business owner.
Yes.
Around that same time, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Wow.
And I always heard her, she always told me that you should do something more impactful with your life to make impact. And I thought I was going to lose her. And I said, this is a perfect opportunity to, if she does pass, at least she saw me trying to really make impact that she believed in me on for so many years. So the good thing about it, my son is doing well, my mom is doing well. So that's always like the exciting part of that. And now we have backpack healthcare.
So how was it, which is interesting. So what was the major impediment that even these families had, that they were Medicaid, that they couldn't get access? What was the barrier? What were you finding?
Yeah, so some of the barrier was that, there's been thoughts about possibly low reimbursements. There's not enough reimbursement. Uh-huh. But one thing that was consistent is that, talking to multiple providers is that Medicaid patients don't show up for appointments. So it will be more likely to, have no shows, which will impact revenue. And in some cases, Medicaid pay almost equal and some for behavioral health, mental health, like commercial. So the pandemic actually helped because if you think about the social determinants of health and individuals of needing transportation to get to an appointment, a mom that's working 2 jobs, that's one of the reasons why they're missing appointments. As when you take a look back of what was happening. So the pandemic gave us an opportunity for those individuals who may have been in circumstances that would have impacted their ability to get to appointments. The transition to telehealth made it easier for them.
Wow. So that was the iteration or the evolution of backpack.
Exactly.
So what when you started it, what was some of the, because thinking about being an entrepreneur, you have to be, you're fearless, but you're fearful. I think the two can exist at the same time. But I think it's the courage and the faith that allows the fearlessness to overcome being fearful. Because so many people are just so much in the box and this is when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs. I said, you literally, and you used the word before we started, is you got to be a disruptor, right? And most people want to work and feel comfortable and not feel, uncomfortable. So was it uncomfortable when you first jumped out there?
It was the most uncomfortable thing that I had ever done in my life, because the fear of failure was there, but also the fear of success.
Yeah.
And most people don't think about that. But I had a conversation with myself, and I said, you know what do I have to lose? If I never take this shot, I'm going to be 80, 90 on my bed wondering what would have happened. And if I fail, at least I tried. Yeah. And I should never give up. But it was the hardest thing, and it continues to be one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life.
I had an opportunity. I did an interview for something. It's called Road Trip Nation. It was these young entrepreneurs, college age, and just asking questions. And they said what for me, what makes the difference? And I said, you really have to have a fuck it mentality.
Yeah.
Right. And just whatever it's gonna work. You'll make it work. So as you're grinding along, you're starting Backpack. What was kind of some milestones that you hit that you knew you were on the right path as you were going for the breakthrough?
The first month in the company, hustle mentality. I'm looking at all these pediatrician offices. It's just me and billing, customer service.
Yes.
All the roles and the clinician.
Yes.
Did the clinical work. And this lady, the question that every single provider asks me, do you accept Medicaid? I was like, yes. It's like, okay, we'll send you patients. I was like, well, we're going to get up and running.
So this is literally you calling the providers, looking
at patients. Yeah, yep. Patients. The first month, we generated about $3,000 in revenue. The very first month we opened.
Wow.
And it kind of gave me a sense of, wow, this is such a need that's out there. These kids are struggling. And to think about that, if I know now, for the first time in history, more than 50% of the kids in the U.S. are BIPOC or from multicultural households.
Okay.
When you think about more than half of the kids in the U.S. are on Medicaid, if I don't make an impact now, the person who has a personal story, those are the things that can make me continue, but at least I had a revenue to help make it a little bit more easier. Not in every instant an entrepreneur would get revenue their very first month. So this was just a unique circumstance, but I went to time in. If you have the right product at the right time,
yes,
you're going to be successful.
Yes.
Sometimes it might take longer, but it's making sure you have the right product at the right time. But that fire within me of thinking about all the other kids, like my son, when it got tough, that's what kept me going.
No, and so think about, one of the things which is interesting about that is as you're going through those challenges, right? And you're going through it's grind season, and grind season changes. The question I get asked, I want to ask you: do you think the grind mentality is innate, or can it be taught?
I feel that anything can be taught, right? So there's a combination. So every one of us have that grind mentality within us. But what is it going to take to unleash the lion and unleash the beast?
Okay.
So what is that moment that's going to tell you, I don't care about what's going to happen. I don't care if I feel what is that moment? And once you find that moment, you can have that. You can be okay, I'm going to do it. But we all have that within us. Because you think about little kids, how they learn to crawl, they walk, they all jump off of the stairs. They're all crawling up the stairs. They're not afraid of anything. That's who we are. Sometimes society shelters us to thinking that this is what we are capable of, but that's not who we are as beings. So being able to understand what I'm going to do. If I lose, you lose. If you win, you win. If I have to go and rent a 1-bedroom apartment for me to give myself a fighting chance, just never give up.
So now that the Backpack starts going, month on month, you started gain that revenue, build the revenue. Where was the crucible, the breakthrough? Lead us up to the funding.
Yeah. So the first year it was interesting because in 2021 there was a lot of 2021, 2022. There were a lot of venture capital being deployed.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wasn't one of those lucky ones.
We never are.
Yeah, I never got any less than and then Black woman is less than 0.005. So it's even harder. And then a Black woman with a hijab.
Yes.
And a Black woman with a hijab from the Caribbean with an accent. So it's like, you think about all those things that happen. But I know that I didn't want to just create a small company because I wanted to make impact nationally, but also globally. So I remember meeting these two women and they said, you know what? They try to help me raise venture capital. I met with some of the best investors, but a lot of people were afraid of the Medicaid business because it was like, it hasn't been tested. It hasn't been tried. They didn't have any pattern or recognition that this business can be successful. So I got my first angel checks from them, which allowed me to meet payroll. But that was the only check I had in 2021 up until the end of 2022. So a lot of it has been like, you know, the business running very lean, leveraging the clinicians, having them be 1099 so that, you know, they only get paid to see whenever they saw a patient is what kept us going. And, you know, I started learning more about venture capital world, like what makes you successful, and then trying to identify who are the impact investors. So I just said yes to everything. Someone asked me, hey, do you want to come do this? Do you want to come to this? I just said yes. I didn't know anything. I just showed up. And I think that was something that was different. I just kept showing up every time.
So when you finally get it, like, what was the feeling? Because I'm thinking about, for me, because what I want everyone to understand is, as two Black CEOs, our company got $20 million in Series A funding. That shit don't happen. It just doesn't. It's an anomaly, right? Like, people are kind of blown away with it, right? How did you feel when you got it?
So there were different stages. So I had a smaller round. It felt surreal. And then at the same time, elements of fear kicked in. Like, I can't mess up these people's money. I can't lose their money. I got to make sure I'm able to make a return and also make impact. So then having that, we want to grow, but also want to preserve, right? Because the last thing you want when there's so few people that have that opportunity, that you blow it. Because you think about, like, do you think I'm going to get a second chance? This is my one and only. And unless I'm like extremely successful, which I know we're in the right path for that. And I think that was one of those things of, like, that sense of more fear kicked in. And knowing at least, wow, we're on to something. But that fear was there of, like, how do we continue going?
So for me, it was definitely, I took like an exhale. Because I was doing it since 2010, grinding, right? Like, so I've aged like Barack, right? Just in it, right? And there was a lot of inherent sacrifices that I had to make, but then people who cared about me had to make. From my children not being there because I'm working 20-hour days, or I'm going wherever a check, a contract has to be, still falling down, but believing in the work. Right? Like, I think that's important. But to me, it was responsibility, because I didn't want to mess up the money, right? That was one, but messing up the opportunities for other people who were smarter, who are smarter than me to do and get this right. Because then it's the investors are saying, well, damn, we took a chance. All right. It was a long shot. They blew it. So now we can't, let's not take the same chance on people that look like them. Right. I mean, I literally think about that every single day, but I didn't do my homework. Like, for me, I got the phone call and I thought it was a prank call. Like, I didn't know what the hell VC was, right? I mean, it was to the point that the first phone call from me to me was from KKR.
Whoa.
Which is like one of the biggest.
Yeah, that's a big firm.
I'm like, who the hell is this? Right? And I'm literally Googling as he's talking to me. And I'm like, oh, damn. Like, this is a real phone call, right? And it started getting me to think. And, you know, now, people say, you know, is the grind the same? I was like, there's still a grind. It's very different.
Very different grind.
A lot of vultures, a lot of different friends, so-called friends in different masks. They're really on the Frantz Fanon type stuff that I've had to watch out for. So what has been your biggest lesson so far with the funding and where you are now?
Yeah, I'll take a step back. So for anyone that wants to learn about, like, VC funding, I feel that every entrepreneur, but every person of color needs to understand how it works and to learn that, because it's one of the biggest ways and greatest ways to get to success. all of the top companies out there and all the top billionaires have had venture capital funding.
Yes.
And that's the way that capital is what leveraged them to get to where they were, or they could have just been a small business. And one thing that helped me was on Shark Tank. I just was watching a whole bunch of like Shark Tanks and taking notes. And I kept hearing about like convertible note, and I saw the VCs would get excited. So I kind of like had the University of Shark Tank.
And see, I get it.
Yeah. So that was like been like, you know, something exciting. So one of the biggest lessons like learned since that in my experience is you have a responsibility to take care of the kids, your employees, and your shareholders. And how do you do that in a brilliant manner where you're thinking about all your stakeholders all the time? And it's become more of like an art than even a science. And that's one of like the things that I'm still learning. Trust me, if you have any tips for me, I'll take it. And managing all of that between the future of the company, the board meetings, also your kids. Like I have 3 kids, a 10-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. But I made sacrifices because now I'm divorced because, you know, throughout this journey, which is unfortunate. But it's like, how do you manage all of that?
Well, it's interesting. I'm divorced now.
Yeah.
In a good relationship, but I didn't know how to navigate that.
Exactly.
Right? Like that, it was really hard. You know, people say, you know, and what's interesting is we overlap in what we do, right? That we're supposed to be looking for mental health and understand the social emotion for children, that sometimes even as CEOs that we neglect ourselves. There is very little work-life balance.
There is very little work-life balance, and there's a big sense of neglect. If I was to go back, the first thing I would do is hire a therapist.
Really?
From day one to navigate me through like the challenges, and then even like how do you have group therapy and how you bring in others as you go through this, because it's uncertain, but there's not a path forward of you've seen someone who looked like you who've done it so that you can say, what have you done? And it's like not having that is like really challenging.
And I thought about that. You know, I was speaking to another CEO, and they were like, I can't just do 45 minutes every other week. Like they need blocks.
Yeah.
Literally blocks to even get into the space mentally to be able to open up emotionally to a therapist and then return back to work whole after the therapy session. So they actually avoid the therapy session. Yeah. So, you know, my early therapist was Balvenie, famous scotch that I drink consistently. But no, it was literally, my peak time is in the morning. So it makes me feel like to take therapy in the morning. But it was so exhausting coming out of therapy that it would literally blow me away. Like I was not as functional for the rest of the day. So then I put therapy at the end of the day. But by the time I got to therapy, I was completely emotionally wasted at the same time. So, you know what I mean? It's interesting that you say that, like, particularly as we reflect on those lessons learned. It's been a beautiful journey, but it's hard.
It's hard.
You know what I mean? Like that is, you know, as I'm speaking to more and more young people who want to go into that, you know, I want them to have eyes wide open about what that is. And what are you willing to sacrifice and give up for? Because it is a lot. So how do you balance now with 3 children?
You don't balance.
No, there you go. That's the answer, right?
Anyone who tells you that's balanced, like they're not being honest. There really isn't a balance. You have to think about, what do you want? How bad do you want it? If this is your first opportunity to end generational poverty, is it worth the sacrifice for your future generations? And also, kids are forgiven. Like, they forgive, right? Because now my son, who's 10 now and doing well, he asked me when I got back from my trip, so, hey, mommy, did you close that deal? How did it go?
That's dope.
So because I'm telling him, so what are you willing to sacrifice and what are you willing to teach the future generations so that they can have a better life going forward? And I think that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make, because no one else in my family have had the opportunity to make the same sacrifice.
So I haven't watched as much Shark Tank, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to double down on it. But I look at a lot, since I was a history major, the foods that built America, the men or women who built America, the movies that built America. But it was always somebody that had to leap out there for that. So you get the Henry Fords, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, Like they really the Carnegies. Like they had to suffer, and what were they willing to sacrifice for the possibility of breaking and creating generational wealth? Right? Like that is real. And I would say, to your point, most of the people who say work-life balance are employees. They're not CEOs.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is if you want to collect the check every 2 weeks and you'll be okay, I think that's work. This is cathartic to me because I always think I'm nuts. Right? That I can't turn it off. That is the first thing I wake up with and the last thing I go to sleep with.
Same here. And I think for me, like the discipline, what I've done is that I have the expectation of myself. This is what I expect to be my resilience, my dominance. I always joke around and say, if you see me fighting the bear, pray for the bear. But what I've learned is that not expecting the same from my employees, because I want them to be their best selves. So I'm willing to make that sacrifice, that grind, that time, but making sure I give them enough space so that they can take care of their mental well-being, which is like been something I've been getting better at over time of like having like, I'm willing to make that sacrifice, but ensuring my team has that space to be able to improve their mental well-being.
How did you get to that? Because I still struggle, right? Like, so whether it's, I'm not an animal person, right? So if like a pet dies, it's very symbolic and impactful to people. I'm like, oh, you coming to work, right? People say I'm burned out. I'm like, oh, you coming to work? Like and that's hard on my employees. It really is. And I would like to think I'm empathetic, but when it comes to work, I'm not. Like I struggle with it. Like,
yeah, it took me time to get to this point. Let me tell you, like I've been grinding since I was 9. We're Caribbean parents, so like it's like you're gonna do what you have to. You get up early, you get up at 5.
Yeah.
But it's learning that meet people where they are, and think about the longevity that I am in this position. There are not many CEOs in the world, right? If they wanted to be a CEO and they could, they would. And why can I ensure like I have that empathy with them, have high expectations, deliver results, deliver KPIs, but ensure that you give them that space to know that although I would love for you to work as much as I want you to be able to make the sacrifice that you feel that's necessary for you.
See, this is why I wanted you to be the first guest on season 4. No, I think it's a great alternative perspective, and a perspective from someone who had to earn it. Right? I didn't want to get someone who, and people get it different ways, but who inherited it, who had to step up. It's like really from the ground up, what it looks like, the challenges, the sacrifices, the falling forward, the falling back. I absolutely agree with you. Pray for the bear. My saying is, I'm unconditioned to lose. I don't know how to lose.
I don't know how to do. I wonder if that's an innate thing. Because remember earlier we talked about like, are people born with it? We all have that. Maybe we had good parents that didn't tell us it was okay to win. But I don't know how to lose. I can't handle it.
No, yeah, like it's a construct that I can't wrap my mind around. Right. I want to thank you. I know you get the pull on your time is so much, but I was purposely holding out. One, the synergy, the energy that you bring to a room. If for people obviously on camera that haven't experienced, there's an energy. You're definitely a thermostat. You set it. You don't you're not a thermometer, right? So I appreciate that energy, the realness, the openness, and just the way to think outside the box. I'm glad that we partnered. I'm glad that, I'm glad that you're just a text message away. That I know that I'm not crazy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for being a leader, someone I can look up to.
Yeah. Oh, we gotta edit that one, right?
Yeah, I know.
No, I appreciate it.
You set the path, right? I want to follow it. At least I have someone we can learn from each other.
No, absolutely. Welcome. Obviously, we'll talk, and we support each other. Just thank you for blessing me with your time.
Thank you for
and thank you for blessing everybody.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. This is a wrap for episode 1, season 4, one door at a time. As always, we want to thank our 2 sponsors. We're growing that sponsorship, y'all. You got to hop on early before it's too late and too expensive. Atlas Restaurant Group. There are like 34 different restaurants all throughout the Baltimore area, in Houston, Philadelphia. Shout out again to Mercedes-Benz of Catonsville. Thank you, Sam, for always looking out. Thank you for being our early sponsor of the podcast as well. You can catch all of our content on concentric.world. Feel free. I need y'all to subscribe, y'all. I need y'all to subscribe, give some feedback, and share it with everybody. Until next episode, I'm your host, David Heiber. See you later. Thank you.